Hey, man, you ever hear that Jeff Beck cover of that Hallelujah song? And that's a song I'd like to use right here. My wife always says that song finds you at a special time in your life when you need it. I don't know, but I think it would sound cool for this episode. It was something I was hearing a lot at the time. Anyways, you guys hop inside. We're going to have a good time today. We're going to Iraq. Welcome to the Wrecking Yard. I'm Jerry Wayne Longmire, and y'all are presumably still y'all. Maybe with a few new sets of ears and eyes. Who knows? Of course, all are welcome at the Church of Internal Combustion. And always, I appreciate you sharing your piece of your Sunday with us. Some exciting news. We picked up our very first sponsor this week. So we actually have a sponsor this week, and it's the Everyone Racers podcast. Yeah, and I have some copy here to read you guys, and then we'll talk about them just a little bit. Let's see. Where did I put that? Oh, here we go. Boom. Now we're cooking with propane. Everyone Racers is a podcast about amateur endurance racing from beginner to advanced, as well as the news, tips, and tricks that go along with our hobby. Four friends and often teammates, Chrissy Matura, Christopher Abbott, Tim Burr, and Christian Mental Ward discuss current racing trends and news, as well as occasional interviews and guests who are interesting people with different perspectives on racing and car culture. That's Everyone Racers podcast. I got over there. I don't get a lot of free time, but I got over there a little bit and listened in on a couple episodes. Just check it out because I like to know who I'm dealing with, and very knowledgeable. If you've ever had any questions about getting into maybe amateur endurance racing or any kind of racing really, and you want to listen to some guys that are actually doing it and some teammates that are going through some stuff. Not only that, I was listening to one of the episodes and they were talking about a BMW truck car, and one of the guys, I hadn't listened to it enough to know their voices yet, said, "That's about the coolest thing you can do with any boring car is just turn it into El Camino." And right away, I love that guy. So if you're interested in endurance racing, amateur endurance racing, if you're thinking about becoming a racer, or if you just want to know what goes on behind the scenes, these guys are a hoot. Some of the stories they were telling about some of the car breakdowns and some of the ways they were talking about a German team using a water hose to fix a power steering pump, and it lasted like 4 hours in the endurance. So it's some neat stuff. You should go check it out. And thank you guys for bringing y'all the Wrecking Yard today, Everyone Racers podcast. All right, that felt good. That felt fun to do. And I used y'all's money and bought myself an air conditioner, and that feels good too. I got cold air blowing right up on the Little Diamond Gym right now. It feels nice. Oh, I'm in such a better mood. I tried to film this morning. It did not go well. I ended up getting in a rage fight with the neighbor's dog, and at some point it just got too hot to record, and my camera started overheating. So I just got pissed off and I went and bought an air conditioner. Now, look at the smile, right? That's a $226 smile right there. It's a very cheap smile. Woo! Feels so much better out here. All right, before we get too deep off into this thing, I do want to look at some comments from last week. And so I got those right here too. And we'll do that and then we'll just be done with the phone. How about that? How's that grab you? Grabs me great. All right, here it is. From AKOCH, ACOC. That's probably not it. AKOCH 1337. I think. Whew. I think the thing I love most about this series is I have very little in common, while also a lot in common, Jerry. Different backgrounds, but it don't matter. Man, I'm certainly telling y'all that's what I'm learning from this thing, this whole little journey. I got emails from folks in Iceland and New Zealand last week. How wild is that? People that can relate to this thing that I'm doing here and talking about here. So I love hearing that. I love hearing no matter how different we are, we're all rooted in some of these same things. It reminds me a lot, like when people talk about astrology and stuff, there's this one thing they talk about. I think it's called Saturn's return, and supposedly like every 28 years, Saturn returns to the exact spot it was in when you were born. right? And that causes like massive upheaval and big starts, and people make big changes in their lives. And I don't know. I lean towards science a little bit myself. I'm more that kind of fella. And I suspect that those are probably just big developmental milestones as far as brain aging goes and maturity goes. Because so many people, you know what I mean? These commonalities are present in large portion of the population. So I think it probably has more to do with these are milestones for your brain and your brain as it ages. And probably an ancient people just kept track of it the only way they knew how, by the stars and the planets they saw reoccurring in the sky, which kind of used, I think, as a calendar and obviously some timekeeping device. It's amazing how much more in common we all are than we think, though. I think that's just, those are some ages people go through some stuff because your brain's changing at that age. Especially, I mean, we have a lot in common, especially once you dig below the surface a little bit. Yeah, folks, it's kind of like landscaping, you know? It all looks the same if you dig deep enough. That was a little deeper than I meant to get on that. Promise I didn't smoke before this much. I'm just giddy. It's the air. All right, Mike Fleissner, 4415. That's a killer family project. That roof and body is thick steel. The Sherry K. Talking about my 71 Super Beetle blowing my mother. I'm about to go extract. Don't got a lot of updates on it, except that I will just tell you I'm so excited about it. I haven't been this excited about a car in quite some time. But my cousin Jimmy has just gone above and beyond for me. One of his friends has offered to bring his backhoe out, and Jimmy's in the truck business, so he's got all kind of chains and straps and everything we need to extricate this thing. And then, of course, my other cousin Ricky has offered to throw it on his flatbed trailer and bring it down to Houston for me. And I want to go film the extraction if Jimmy will let me on his land, and I need to talk to him about it. And if he does, I want to try to talk my dad into coming out there and being a part of it, you know. It's a big thing. So we'll see. I pretty much just decided to bring her back here. And I don't know a lot about body work. That's like one of my no skill sets I don't got. But I'm going to try to learn some. I got some good friends that are willing to teach me. And my neighbors offered to teach me some stuff too. And so I think I'm going to try to do the body work on it myself. And just get the body back straight and looking good again and cleaned up. And hopefully I can save the patina. And if that all goes well, then I've got a plan for the repairs. So we'll see how it is. But it's not going to be quick or easy. You know, it's not going to be one of these car shows where they rebuild a car and everything. It's not going to be quick or easy. But I don't think this sort of project is supposed to be. I sent pictures of it to my buddy David, who's a great car guy, and he knows a lot more about cars than most people. David goes, "Bro, I don't think that's an automotive conquest. It looks more like a Homerian Odyssey," which tickled me. But he's absolutely right. It's going to be a ton of work. All right, what's our next guy? Who's next comment? Who is it? From @Heavy Listening Music. Mr. Kent was a saint as surely as any human ever was. Buddy, you have no idea. Mr. Kent pops up in some other stories to come. In my haste to get through that big story last week, I kind of did him a bit of a disservice because he was such a big character. And I do think of him often. He passed away riding his Harley Davidson motorcycle. He was in a wreck over in Conroe. And but you know what? He loved riding that motorbike. He loved that Harley Davidson. He had a farm, a Harley Davidson, and a bunch of cows and nieces and nephews and such. And he just loved having his whole family over there at the farm with him. And he loved that farm, and he loved riding that Harley Davidson. So, you know, the man went out doing things he loved, and he'd done a lot of good for people and made a heck of a name for himself in the community. And we'll definitely cover Mr. Kent again. I guarantee you, he was a hoot. I remember one time I had Mr. Kent over on his job, we had to do a retaining wall down the side of a house. And this lady had about a 32-year-old General Electric compressor on the outside of her house. Old GE unit, but it was just humming along and doing the job, But I even told Mr. Kent, I called Mr. Quinn over there, like, we got to unhook this thing. We got to hoist it up so we can build this retaining wall where it's going, and we're going to have to move it up. And Mr. Kent said, no problem. He starts unhooking it, and he's messing around, and I go, Mr. Kent, I've heard these old units, sometimes you disconnect these old units, they don't ever work again, It's like doing transmission fluid on an old transmission. That thing might not ever move again, You wash all that crap out. Mr. Kent steadily disconnecting and untying things and just looks back over his shoulder and goes, that's what I hear. And just right back to disconnecting his air conditioner. And so, I'm like, well, has it ever happened to you? And he goes, oh, all the time. And he just walked off. He goes, hey, call me when you're ready for it to get hooked back up. Well, I spent the next week just terrified that AC unit. I was going to have to buy this lady an AC unit because the AC unit wasn't going to come on. I mean, she was a pretty cool customer. I think she would have understood, but I just want to have to give her that news. And, of course, to Mr. Kent's credit, he showed up a week later, hooked that old unit up, and it purred away like a kitten. And for all I know, that lady's now got a 40-year-old unit still tinking away on the side of her house. She was a pretty good customer. Oh, all right. So today is fun. Today we're going to talk about my very first military tour ever, and a boat ride with somebody that become a hell of a friend, So back in 2007, I won a big comedy contest in Houston. It's called Houston's Funniest Person Contest. It used to be a big deal. And one of the perks that came as a result of winning that was Outlaw Dave had seen me quite a few times performing and hired me to be on his radio show as a cast member. Brought me on. Wasn't like a paid cast member, but still had a regular gig on the radio. And also, I won a week headlining at the Laugh Stop the following year, I think. Yeah, I won a week to headline at the Laugh Stop. I got asked to go on this overseas military tour, which I was pumped about, but also scared about. I don't know anything about the military. Never been in the military. Never served. A lot of the men in my family were military men, some of them, but my dad wasn't, so I didn't grow up in that kind of household. And all I really knew of the military is what I'd learned from listening to my Uncle Gary tell stories about Vietnam. And, a lot of those stories did not have a happy ending. So, but I was excited. I was going to go with a company called Lone Wolf Entertainment. And my friend Olivia Arrington, she was another comic. She worked with them, and she got me the gig. 2007 was a good year, right? It was a good year, man. Rachel and I, we had our little rent house over there on Althea in Old Oak Forest, and I had asked her to marry me at the end of 2007, I think on Christmas Day or Christmas Eve. And that, that's another story for another time. But, yeah, we were having a good time, man. We were kind of nesting, We're settling in together. We'd been living together for a little while. At the time, I had a 1968 Ford Bronco that I let my buddy David talk me into buying, that was in about the same shape as this Volkswagen Super Beetle I'm about to go drag out of the woods. Not quite as bad, but whew. And in reality, my daily driver was a 1977 Yamaha 750 triple that the same buddy had talked me into buying also. But I did love that motorbike. Yeah, that was a good day. I'd throw my backpack, my helmet, and my headphones on, and buddy, I was free, And that little bike, You know, a lot of bikers. There's a lot of people in the bike community give motorcycles a bad name. You know, some people hear motorcycles, they conjure up images, and it's usually one or two images. It's somebody being a jerk on a Harley, or it's somebody being a jerk on a sport bike. You never see folks on, custom baggers and antiques and those wild ass Orange County chopper builds acting a fool, because they're basically driving art projects. And it's like the same way when you watch a movie and you see, you'll see like some bad dudes in a lowrider car that looks like it's got $100,000 worth of paint on it, chasing somebody down the road doing a drive-by. Like, that ain't the car they bring to the drive-by, bro. That's not how they find you, okay? When they come to do the drive-by, you know, they show up in that damn 87 Buick Century that's been sitting at the grandma's house for a decade. That's the one for dirty work. You do the dirt, you ditch it. Grandma, she just got her house painted for free, and she's old school. She ain't snitching. The same token, I think you rarely see anyone being a prick on a mid-70s to 80s metric or Japanese bike, you know. But mainly because they're just having too much fun. Those are Japanese motorcycles from the 70s and 80s are like the Mazda B2200 of motorcycles. You know what I mean? They're capable of more than you think. And you're just happy to have a motorcycle. You know what I mean? I love Japanese motorcycles from the 70s, 80s. That Yamaha Triple is one of my favorites. I had a day gig during the day. I worked for David's transmission shop. He had an A-plus transmission franchise I worked for. I was a shop manager, and I was wildly mediocre at that. One would even say bad, and not really great at selling transmission jobs either. I think David just kind of kept me on out of the kindness of his heart. And bless him for that, because I sure needed the gig. And then I got, of course, I got the regular radio gig with Outlaw Dave. And Dave is teaching me a lot about radio and business, and me and Rachel are fixing up our little house we're living in. We're doing the floors and fun couple projects like that. Pop, by 2008, Pop's living with us. He came to live with us at Christmas the year before. And so he's living with us, and he's looking for a regular gig. He just graduated college, I think. I don't remember exactly what the timeline was. But he was done with college. He'd been going to college at Sam Houston, and he was done. He had went back and finished his degree. He never had as a grown-up, which I always had a lot of respect for. It takes a lot to just stop in the middle of your life and go, I'm going to go finish this thing I started one time. And he freaking did it, you know. I don't get booked at this time. I'm not getting booked at the Laugh Stop that much, but it's because my fiance is running the whole comedy club, and that would look bad if she was booking me all the time. So I get it, but I'm bopping around every other place in town. I'm doing guest spots. I tell you, it's a good time. I even had me this is probably one of the most normal times of my life, because I got me a Friday night poker game with my buddies, my Joey, my brother, and my old buddy Steve, and of course one of my closest friends, David. And we would all meet on Friday nights, and we would wear funny hats, and we'd play poker, and we called it the Committee of Tree Fitty. And sometimes we would engage in, all the time we would engage in drinking, but sometimes there would be other recreational substances. And some of the funniest nights I can recall in my entire life happened in that little one-car garage on Althea Lane. There's a drive. And it doesn't really matter for the purpose of the story, but my God, we had some good times out there. One night, me and Steve eat up a bunch of mushrooms and tried to play poker on mushrooms. I don't know if you ever tried to do that, but they are not a performance-enhancing drug for that game. They do not help at all. I lost all my damn money that night, and all Steve's too. I was kind of being represented by a distribution label at the time. That had all happened as a result of the contest too. This company called BCD picked me up and was going to be my distributor for my new album that was coming out. And It was called Bad Decisions, which I realize now is not a super original name because there's about 15 other albums named that, and a whole lot of songs, and which I don't even really care about it. But I'd also filmed a special to go with this album that was different material, and the special still hasn't been released to this day. I'm the only one that has a copy of it. I think me and my buddy Brett Simos both have a copy. We're the only ones that have copies of it. All shot on a broadcast camera. It looks great. It was at the Laugh Stop, full house, packed house. It was a great show. But me and that company had a falling out. We never ended up doing anything with it, or we had an argument about that specific project we never could get right on. And I think now that company is completely folded. But when they were active, they would have me come in there and record voiceovers because they represented a whole bunch of Houston rap artists, and they had a little studio set up, and they were doing all kind of little projects, and they would have me come play, angry redneck cops on video, on soundtracks and stuff like that, and voiceovers, and who knows how much crap I'm probably on that I'm not even aware of, to be honest with you. So if you ever just listen to a hip-hop album, I know that maybe there's a Chameleonaire one. If you ever listen to a hip-hop album and you hear some dude that sounds like me playing a cop, it might be me. It might be me. I don't have any copies of any of that stuff. Don't know where it all went. I was just young and dumb and having a good time. Boy, I love riding that Yamaha. That was such a good... That's my favorite, one of my favorite motorcycles I ever had in my life. It was so perfectly balanced. I swear you could stop at a stoplight and just step off the thing and it would stand there. Not really, but it was perfect, man. And I had to ride up down TC Jester every day. And if you're familiar with Houston, TC Jester's kind of a curvy little number. Moves at a good pace. It's a fun place to ride a motorcycle as long as you're keeping your head on a swivel. There was I would listen to my headphones a lot while I rode that motorbike. And there was this song, and it's an older song. It's called Hallelujah, and I can't remember who wrote it. Is it Leonard Nimoy? No, that's Spock. It's something like that, though. Leonard Cohen, maybe? Leonard Cohen? I don't know. Somebody wrote it. That's not important. What is important is a guy named Beck covered it with his guitar. And it's an amazing cover, and my wife always had a theory about this song. Is she said that she thinks that song finds people when they need it, because she had this moment that was her own with that song. And she told me that a couple times, and I liked the song. It was cool. I had it on a playlist or something at the time. But I remember one day I was cruising home from work, and I had the headphones in, and I was just sort of coming down Shepherd, and I heard the first part of that song where he says, they say there was a secret chord that David played, and it pleased the Lord. But you don't really care for music, do you? Something like that. I hear that, and it strikes me in some kind of way, because I'm telling y'all, everything's coming up groovy. Right? Got a cool little motorbike, good looking little fiance that I'm just head over heels in love with. Some good friends that come play poker with me on Friday night. I'm bopping around doing gigs. I got my little radio gig. You know what I mean? I got my daytime gig, make some money. And it just struck me. It struck me some kind of way before. I'm weaving in and out of traffic on Shepherd, and I'm having these big emotions. Like, did I finally play the chord that pleased the Lord? Everything is so synced up in my life right now. I'm telling you, the trees looked greener. And Beck's guitar is just pounding this steady cadence in my head. And every time I twist that throttle, that triple cylinder just torques up that drive shaft, and we squat and we go with the music. That bike, when you hit it hard, that drive shaft would make it was kind of like it would jack up and squat at the same time. It was a weird motion. But if you were ready for it and you knew it was happening, boy, just and you're gone, buddy. We just squatted, bro. Music's going. I felt so good that when I got to my neighborhood, I didn't want to stop. So I just passed my neighborhood and I leaned into that there's this real long curve on TC Jester before it wanders off the Inwood, and I leaned on that curve and I twisted that throttle all the way to the stop in about third gear, and I felt that bike dig in and just jerk me into time and space, and the music's going. Hallelujah. Hallelujah. And in the final minutes of the song, I busted a U, man. Right in the median, second gear, scraping pedals, roared back down the street towards my house. I just jetted the carbs and tuned, me and David had tuned them with my new header, and the response was just, you know what I mean, it just blip, 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 go. Back to the neighborhood, and I whip into my street, and I pull up into my driveway, and that song ends, and I'm just kind of in silence. I take my headphones out because I'm processing everything I was just feeling. I'm like, man, I really turned the corner. So all these things are going right for me. All you can hear is a header ticking, cooling down. Like, tick. Y'all probably thought y'all was hearing like a Jan and Dean Dead Man's Curve story, didn't you? Thought I was gonna wreck. I know I told y'all some sad shit. And I know it sounds like that kind of story. Before I even got my helmet off, I remembered something I needed at the Walmart. I don't remember what it was, but it did seem important at the time. I knew Rachel wasn't going to be home and work for a few hours, and I just had such a good time riding home from work. Fired that machine up and shot off toward Wally World on 290. I don't got my headphones in because I'm still just sort of processing everything from earlier in silence, you know. All right, I leaned in, I twisted again on the entrance 290. But I hear this strange sound back here, and it sounds like a cheap turbo whining, you know? Just that, and it louder and louder, and I remember I straightened up my posture, and I let off that throttle, and all of a sudden, pow! That rear tire explodes at 50 miles an hour, and to this day, I can't explain the Remo Williams ninja magic I did to keep that bike upright to the edge of the highway and keep from getting run over and rush hour 290 traffic. But I can tell you that I don't think the Lord was telling me that I pleased the Lord by playing the right secret chord. I think that song was just telling me to check my rear tire, because I almost became the world's biggest speed bump on 290. Boy, I loved riding that motorbike. It's a good time. Like I said, around May or March, they let me know that I'm gonna go to Iraq in June. I'm giddy about it because I don't know much about Iraq. I don't really know much about anything. I'm excited for a real big adventure like I ain't never had before. Nervous. A little worried about going in June because it's pretty hot in Houston in June. I think some military guy looked at my chubby headshot and was like, send him in June. We'll fix him. Also, right before I leave to go to Iraq, I get to host the finals of Houston's Funniest Person contest for the next year, for 2008. And that's what, when you win the year before, you get to come host the finals. And it's a big deal, and it's a big scene deal. Everybody from the scene's out, and a lot of the old timers or the OGs are out, and everybody tries to outdo everybody, and it's just it's a good night, you know. I'm excited. It's my rite of passage. I finally get to. I got fourth place, third place. I got second place, third place, and first place in that contest. And so I finally won it, and I was feeling good. You know, this is my year to come in and be the guy, and I like that. Remember, about a week or two before the trip, I got up to go to work, and it was raining outside because I live in Houston and that happens a lot. And I remember I was getting ready to walk out the door, and Pop is in the garage smoking a cigarette. He says, "Hey, fella, you're not riding this rain today. Why don't you let me give you a ride to work?" Now, at the time, Pop was always right about everything, and I was tired of it. All right? Live with your father-in-law is hard, okay? And I was just tired of him being right about every damn thing all the time. And nothing big, just some headbutting, a little contention. I wanted to be right every once in a while. Now, the big problem with me wanting to be right was he usually was right. But not me. I couldn't listen. I said, No, I've been riding motorcycles all my life, Pop. Ain't nothing but a little water. I've ridden in the rain plenty. Ain't no big thing. I'll be fine. I put my poncho on and I fired up that Yamaha. And I fired up that Yamaha and I pulled out on the street and whipped out of my neighborhood, hit a greasy patch of water. The motorcycle shot out from under me, and I chest bounced across PC Jester till I landed on the motorcycle. Wadded up with it. No air in me, just big gasping. You get the air knocked out of you so bad you can't even cry. Just oh, made me so. Felt like I broke every rib I had. And I look up and Pop's right there in his poncho. He stood in that garage smoking a cigarette and then put his poncho on and waited for my hard-headed ass to wreck. Papa rode a bike for years in Houston. He knew about how slick that street gets right after it's doing that little bit of rain stuff. That stuff you say, oh, ain't no big deal. That's when that street gets slick, like glass. He helped me get the bike back to the garage. And then he took me to work. And albeit a sheepishly quiet ride on my part. Beautiful bike was torn to hell and back. It was all perfect. It was all original, and it was just destroyed. All the chrome was jacked up on it. I was so disappointed. All over a little old dumb decision. I couldn't say much. Papa's right again. I think Rach took me to the ER the next day because I was still in a bunch of pain, and they basically x-rayed it. They're like, oh, it's a bunch of hairline rib fractures, which I don't do enough for that. Tape you up, tell you good luck. Holy hell, it was unpleasant though. If you've ever fractured ribs or broke ribs, break them's much more serious, but fractured ribs hurt like the dickens. Every time you breathe, move, anything, just you fart too hard, ribs hurt. It's a horrible pain. I think I had to do the finals, the Houston's Funniest Finals. I had to host them, and I had to hold my chest together the whole time because every time I laughed, it hurt so bad. And I think a reporter gave me a review and said the visibly ailing Jerry Wayne still was, amazing or whatever. That's probably not what they said. They weren't very nice to me back then. A few days later, Rachel took me and my fractured ribs and packed a bag and took me to the airport to go have one of the biggest adventures I ever had. It was scary because we were some of the very first comics to go into Iraq. Iraq was still an active combat zone, I think, in 2008, at least in some parts. But we were some of the first comedians to go in there. And so a lot of the comics have been to South Korea, they'd been to some of the other bases, but they'd never been into the combat zone bases yet. There were a few who had, but we were one of the first groups for sure. And we didn't really know what to expect, because, like what's going on at the base in South Korea ain't what's going on at the base in Iraq, And me and Rachel hadn't been apart like this yet, and I think it's like 16, 17 days total. And it's not like now where, like, when I went to Africa last year, I got to talk to Rachel pretty much every day, thanks to the fact my phone still works in a lot of countries because of my phone plan. But back then, you couldn't just use your iPhone overseas. So our daily communication was like cut to near nil because the only way we could communicate was through MySpace messaging. That's back in the MySpace days. Showing you what an antique I am. That's back when everybody's friends with Tom. That was the only way we could communicate. If I could get to a computer, had some internet, which a lot of the bases did have, and you could use for 10 or 15 minutes at a time, but it was really slow and it was really hard to use. You know, it was a pain. So it's a lot, man. I'm thinking about a lot of stuff. I'm on that plane to Amsterdam. These broken ribs, these hurt ribs, these fractured ribs, they don't feel great being on a plane for 14 hours. Also, I'd never been on a plane for 14 hours. That's a long damn time being on an airplane. I also had no idea that everything I felt about so much of my worldview was about to change. Because I'm going to tell you, I was the biggest, loudest, chest thumping, rah, 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 go America, let's blow them all up, flag waving type of dude back then. I just was. You know, everybody else is a jealous enemy. They can kick rocks. It's an easy perspective to have when you've never seen the results of war or the sacrifices folks put into to keeping the war machine running. My Uncle Gary called me on the way to the airport. Told me how proud of me he was. My Uncle Gary was a Navy SEAL. Well, he was UDT, so I think that's what became the Navy SEALs. But he was retired, military, several honors. He was very brave in Vietnam, and it felt good. You know, he called me and just told me what all he thought about the fact I was going over there and what a great thing he thought it was, you know. And it man, I ain't gonna lie, it puffed me up a little bit. Made me feel good. I wasn't the military guy, but the military guy was giving me some, you know, he was just a cool uncle, man. He knew karate, and he restored Harleys and old trucks and stuff, and he was a cool guy. So to find out that he thought something I was doing was cool made me feel cool, you know, a lot cooler than I was. I don't know much. We don't have much paperwork back there. I got a little stack of papers telling me who I'm going to meet where. That's about it. And giving me some instructions about keeping my passport on me and, you know, that sort of thing. All I knew was in Amsterdam, I was going to meet up with a dude named Tom Tran and a guy named Chris Shaw. And after I was just on fire, man, after being the ribs on that plane for 14 hours. I remember dragging my crap to the lounge at the next gate for the Kuwaiti flight, and a short Asian fella and a tall black dude with dreadlocks, long dreadlocks. And I think Chris is about 6'1". He's very tall. He walks up, he goes, "You Jerry Wayne?" I said, "Yeah, man, how'd you know?" And he said, "Well, Olivia told me to look for a big country boy holding his ribs in." I said, "Boy, that was good optics we got on." And they introduced themselves. Chris was a stand-up comic from Indianapolis, and Tom was from Buffalo but living in L.A., and was in the new Batman movie, and had also been in the Special Forces during the invasion of Iraq in 2004. And if you met Tom on this trip, you learned all of that in the first few seconds of talking to Tom. Chris is a little more reserved in the beginning, and I don't think I spoke that much because I was in pain, and I was tired, and I was honestly a little overwhelmed by everything, you know. Still didn't really know what I was getting myself into. I mean, the one thing that's true about comics, you put us in a room, at some point, everybody's just trying to think of the next funniest line, and of course, we were no exception. We were just throwing barbs. And flight to Kuwait from Amsterdam, I think it's only about 3 or 4 hours, short flight. It was hot and filthy. Kuwaiti air was a bit lacking in those days. Their seats were together because they'd already checked in, and so I was sitting by myself, and I was already kind of feeling a little left out because it seemed like they already kind of knew each other and had had a friendship. I didn't know they had just met at the airport. Chris is one of those type of dudes. Once you get to know him, I don't think Chris meets many strangers. They had also already done military shows, and like I said, Tom was ex-military, as he had told me at least 3 times by then. Chris is funny. Chris has a real funny sense of humor. I didn't know what to make of Chris at first, because Chris is a dude that loves to see people awkward, and he will call you out at any given time, even if it embarrasses him. I'm the worst. Chris broke me of this habit. But somebody would be sitting there talking about something. They'd be like, you know what I mean? Or you know what I'm talking about? And I would just nod. Whether I knew what they were talking about or not, I didn't want to seem dumb. But I did that one time with Chris. We're all sitting around talking in a group, a bunch of us. And Chris is talking about Frisbee golf. I ain't never heard of no Frisbee golf. I don't know what the hell that is. You know, I only knew golf and didn't know much about that either. And he's like, you know what that is? And I go, yeah. And he goes, what is it? He just called me out in the middle of the conversation like 5 people. And I was like, I don't know. I was just nodding, telling you I did. He goes, all right, let me tell you what it is, Drew. And he tells me all about it. So he just kind of give you he's funny, man. Dude's funny. He'll get you. Landing in Kuwait Airport was a trip, though, bro, because I'd never seen all the dudes in the robes and, you know, all the get-ups and everything. You know, I've seen a lot of things for the first time, and also people are smoking in the airport. All these dudes in robes are smoking cigarettes, and there'll be some third country national, some Indian dude behind them sweeping the cigarette ashes up. I asked our MWR guy, Mike, I'm like, hey man, can you smoke in here? He goes, only if you're American or Kuwaiti royal family. I go, well, how do you know who's the Kuwaiti royal family? He goes, everybody that's not you, because apparently it's a very big family. I made my first overseas mistake. Learned a lesson right when I got into that airport. So I went off to find a bathroom, and I left my bag outside my stall, and I went in the stall to use business. I heard the door open, and I thought I could hear somebody shuffling around in there, but I wasn't really paying attention. I was focusing on the matters at hand, so I get back out there to my group. Man, just a few seconds later, I heard that bathroom door slam open, and there was dudes in there stomping around and yelling in Farsi, I think, or whatever. I don't know what language they speak there, but they were yelling in some language I didn't know, Arabic maybe, just hollering, boy. And other dude was had gotten quiet, was making some noise, and they knock on the stall. I'm afraid to come out. I'm just sitting in there. I'm already done. Trust me, I finished crapping the minute they walked in and started slamming stuff around. But I'm just sitting there. I done pulled my britches up. I don't know what to do. I don't want to come out, though. And they knock on the stall, and I open the stall, and it's 3 of the airport security or soldiers. I don't know who they are. But they've all got machine guns, and they're all at arms pointed at this third country national who was trying to steal my luggage out of the bathroom. And I guess they saw me go in, saw him follow me in, and figured he was up to no good. Come caught him. So thankful to those guys. Didn't lose all my luggage. Had to start the trip with nothing. Our MWR rep, Mike, is he talks like a Persian dude from the East Coast, United States. Real choppy accent. He smokes these stank-ass Turkish cigarettes. Oh, they smelled rough, but they're pretty good to smoke. I smoked a couple. And he's driving us out to the base and stuff, and we're looking around. So far, I'm gonna be honest. So far, I'm not excited about Kuwait. Kuwait there's not a lot to see. It's just sand. It's just sand and more sand. I mean, there's a city, great, and there's some food restaurants. So there's like Burger Kings and stuff on the side of the road, and you know. But it's just you feel like it's sitting on that highway. We were in traffic, and it felt like I was stuck in Odessa, Texas, on the loop. You know, just never ending, looking at nothing. So the scenery's not great. Although we did see a dude in his Lamborghini pull over onto the median, get out of his car, and start throwing all his trash on the ground, which blew my mind. Because, like, you know, don't mess with Texas. All right. You know what I mean? Like, I've been hearing that my whole life. I couldn't believe this dude's just throwing his trash on the ground. And I looked at Mike, our driver. I go, what the hell, man? And he said, the national bird of Kuwait is a plastic bag. And he's right. There was a lot of trash there. It was bad. You find that. I'm sure some of you have traveled and you've seen it. But when you get out of the United States, there's this focus on the environment doesn't happen a lot in some of these smaller countries. It's not. I remember we were sitting in the Kuwaiti airport. I think on the way home, and we were eating McDonald's. We got some McDonald's from the Kuwaiti airport, and it came in the styrofoam containers. And Chris Shaw said, boy, they don't give a McDamn about the environment here. They didn't. Get on base. Hope y'all don't mind. It's like a film in the evening. I'm going to have myself a little drink while we go through this. Cheers to you guys. Thanks for being here. This is a little, it's a gift from my good friend Joseph Bretta. Some of you know we just closed the Whiskey Brothers podcast down. We just wrapped it up. We did our final show. And it was the right decision for all of us. Things are changing. We've all got our own projects and stuff we're doing, but still very bittersweet. But Humble Distilling was one of our whiskey sponsors for a long time at the Whiskey Brothers. And he makes this thing, I think it's called Black Cat Ridge Straight Rye Whiskey. And it's 120 proof. And it's one of the best ryes I ever had in my life. I just love it so much. And so he gifted me a small bottle. He gifted all of us some bottles of the Black Cat Ridge. So I'm going to sip on a little Black Cat Ridge. Again, cheers to you. Whew. That is definitely, whew. Whew. That'll take your lungs away a little bit. That's definitely a sipping whiskey. Have me some ice water in my Top Gun cup. So this is all like brand new to me. I still don't really know Tom, or Chris that well yet. But all this is new to me. I've never been on a military base. I told you that. I've never experienced this kind of life. And now I'm being driven around in a bulletproof Suburban in a foreign country. We're going on a military. Everybody's got guns. All the guns. Getting onto a military base is a little bit of work. Takes a minute or two. Some of you are ex-military, I'm sure you know. So we finally get on base. Of course, we got to wait a while they get us some beds and a room. But they do let us go drop our bags off at the quarters where we're going to be staying on base. And we wander off to go get a bite to eat. There's a Burger King on base, And so we wander over to this Burger King and go get us some food. Of course, I'm in line first because I'm hungry and I'm fat. And I ordered my food. I gave the lady my money, and she gave me my change. And at first, it's so hot. Okay, June in Kuwait is hot, bro. Hot. Oh my God, the heat in Kuwait and Iraq in the summer is just disrespectful. And I'm from Houston, and the sun is blinding. You go inside, you have to wear your sunglasses for a little bit, just so your daggone pupils don't seize up when they enter normal lighting. It's hot, and we're standing in line. We got our gaiters on and our bandanas and big sunglasses keep the sand out of your eyes because there's sand everywhere. You only been there 2 minutes. You only been out of the car 2 minutes. You have sand in places you're never going to get it out again. I think Ralphie May said he was making a pearl somewhere from a piece of sand he picked up in Iraq. I think I was making some pearls too, Bubba. Sand everywhere. So waiting in line for my burger. I paid the lady. She gives me my change, and the currency that they used on base at the time was these cardboard coins for change. They didn't have actual money. It was just these cardboard freedom coins that had little sayings and stuff on them, and the denomination of currency they were. I had never seen that. I told you, I'd never been on base. I was like, what the hell is this? And the lady explains it to me and tells me I can use it, anywhere on base, PX, whatever. I was like, do y'all got Coke machines that use cardboard coins? Because that would be cool. They don't. But she hands me that change, and I go, hey man, what the hell is this? And then she tells me, and Chris is behind me. He goes, what happened, bro? And he's like looking down at me, and I'm trying to look up at him. The sun's in my eye, and I go, dude, look, it's a paper nickel. And he goes, what'd you call me? Bro, when I tell you I froze, I went from 130 Kuwait to 0 degrees. I was like, dude, that's not what I said, nickel. And he just started cracking up because he knew he was just screwing with me. I didn't catch on. I was like, all right, you want this? All right, dude. And so I grabbed my sandy Burger King burger and I headed over to the rest area so I could eat it. So smoke a cigarette afterwards. It's back in my smoking days. Him and Tom were still laughing when they come walking up. And I thought, boy, we can both play this game. And they come walking up, and I said it loud enough for everybody in the area. What up, nickel? And I thought Chris was going to spit his food out. He was laughing so hard. But now Tom looks uncomfortable as hell, so it's a double whammy. I'm winning. They threw me and Chris in a room together. We had bunks in a room together. They put Tom somewhere else and let us know we were going to do a show that night for about 200 service members of the Navy. I think at the time they were calling that base Camp Patriot. And so we're going to do a big show at Camp Patriot for about 200 Navy service members. And which that's exciting. That's a big show. So I go off to collect, my thoughts, and that's the wrong one. I go off to collect my thoughts and get ready for the show. Other guys do the same. And comedy is one of those jobs you gotta have a little bit of an ego. Remember I was talking about doctors last week, and how arrogant they could be, and yada, yada, yada. But also their job requires some arrogance. And comedy is very much the same thing. Any job requires confidence on demand, requires a little bit of ego and arrogance to be good at. And often that's where comics butt head when the egos come out to play. And of course, Tom had all but announced he was the headliner on the tour because of his Batman movie that we'd all heard about quite a bit by that point. And me and Chris didn't really want to fuss with him. And I knew Chris had more experience than me. He'd been a comic longer than me. And he had also worked overseas in military shows. So we're going to ask him to go first. So I volunteered to go first. I was a low man on the totem pole. Now I'm going to tell you, going first, nobody wants to go first. Nobody wants to go up to the cold crowd. Nobody wants to eat the bullet. Nobody does. That's why when you first start out comedy, or at least the way it used to be, we spent a long time being a host and an MC. So you get used to taking that bullet, and then you get you a solid 10, and you get that solid 10, you get you a solid 20, and once you get a solid 30, then you start featuring, being the middle comic. And then, of course, once you build your time up and get your skill set down, one day you can become a headliner. And most of us think we're headliners way before we are. I know I was guilty of it, for sure. But because I've done a lot of comedy contests, I'm very competitive, I have a theory about going first. And that theory is if you're going to go first, you got to try to blow everybody else off that stage. All right, that's just the job. You got to go up there and hammer it and give it everything you got. And that's what because I saw this tape way back in the day. I think maybe Joe Diaz showed it to me. Maybe, I don't remember who showed it to me. But it was a showcase in L.A. and it's a who's who. Everybody's on. Joe Rogan's on it. Joey Diaz is on it. This is way back in the day, you know. This is back in the early 2000s. Everybody's on this showcase. But the man hosts this showcase is a comic that's not very big yet, but he's starting to get well known, is a guy named D.L. Hughley. And D.L. Hughley does such a strong set at the beginning of that showcase that you could watch the rest of that tape and tell that the crowd didn't give two craps about anybody else that came on that stage that night. D.L. Hughley blew everybody away. All 8 other comics just blew their doors off. Then I saw the same thing happen by a comic named J. Scott Holman. And J. Scott Holman, probably one of the funniest comics you don't know anything about. J. Scott Holman was from Muscle Shoals, Alabama. And he had some demons and stuff. And sadly, we lost him a few years back to pancreatic cancer. But boy, when J. Scott Holman was on and he was on stage, you couldn't touch him. He was just good. The man was good at his job. And there was a comedy contest in Tennessee. I don't remember who all was on it, but I do remember J. Scott Holman was hosting it. And I remember John Reef was in that contest. Me and John, I've known John for many years. Good dude. Funny. But John's in that contest, and J. Scott Holman goes up and blows the doors off that place. Same way. Just gives it everything he got, puts it in that first set. And boy, can't nobody follow J. Scott Holman when he's on fire. And that's who I wanted to be that night. I wanted my first showing at a military show. I was going to be in front of 200 people outside, you know, next to a bunch of Navy boats and guns. And by God, I was going to give them everything I had. I was a good American. And I got up there, and I did it, baby. I gave them a set. I hit it. I whooped on them people for 15, 20 minutes, gave them everything I had, turned it over to Chris. Chris went up next. And Chris, boy, I hadn't seen him before. He's funny. Chris goes up there and rips it too, bro. Just destroys, man. Then Tom gets up there. He has a rough night. He had loudly, proclaimed he was the headliner, but apparently the math was off. And we just had to wait in the wings and watch him flounder through a set no one wants to have, especially the first show of the stinking tour, We decided after that show that we're gonna do rock, paper, scissors for the rest of the tour to determine the lineup, because that's the only fair way, right? Nobody wants to say it, but nobody wants what just happened to happen again. And so we all agree to that. I mean, this whole time, you have to understand I'm on the back end of these ribs healing, right? I'm still in a intense amount of pain. So, remember, we're done with the show and they say we can go back to our bunks. I'm gone, buddy. I'm out the door. Then I couldn't sleep because my damn ribs are hurting. I didn't get to talk to Rachel very much, and I couldn't really tell her about everything that was happening yet. And they were also, when you do military tours, they're very serious about what you take pictures of and what they read your emails, for sure, when you're communicating on their computers, because they want to make sure you're not giving away valuable intel or information, even accidentally, that might put somebody in danger. I had to sleep worth a damn at night. I remember I had saved on my iPod. I had one of them big old original iPods, and I had saved the first video ones, and I had saved First Blood, Rambo, and Semi-Pro on my iPod along with a bunch of music. And I know I didn't sleep that night because I sat up and watched both them movies, sitting on my bunk. You know. And in those days, I was pretty good at living out of a bag. I've done a lot of that in my life, so that part of the trip was easy on me. I'm good at living out of a suitcase. I don't need a lot of things in order to travel well. So it doesn't matter that I didn't really get to sleep very good because, I'm ready to go in the morning when they're ready to get us out of there and go do some stuff. Sorry, stuff's irritating the piss out of me. Get it out of the way. Put that over yonder. Look at this. Look at that. But when I'm on the road, I like to be able to vacate with like a 10-minute notice. And this helps when you're working with the military, because any of you that have experience know that when you work with the military, it's a whole lot of hurry up and wait. I didn't know this yet. Told y'all I was new to the whole experience. And I'm mostly just trying to keep my head on a swivel and not let no terrorists sneak up behind me or whatever I'm worried is going to happen to me over there. But they usher us out. The next morning, they take us over to DFAC, and we get some breakfast. And then they're going to take us to the naval port, and we're going to go on one of the patrol boats with the Navy, and they're going to tell us all about it. And that's that. So that's a lot of what you do on these military tours is you go do these meet and greets where you go out, because a lot of these guys can't get off work to come to the show. You know, a lot of these guys are doing jobs that just don't allow them to do it. So we always try to go visit the security people and, some of the jobs like that. And some of the people that aren't, didn't get to come to the show the night before and that kind of stuff. So we went over and go over to this naval port. And I'm going to tell you, man, I was not feeling great about Kuwait. I wasn't enjoying it so far. It's not what you call a lovely place that you want to spend any time in. At least it wasn't for me so far. It's mostly just hot and sandy. Felt like a lot of friction. That looks better. Look at that. And but when we get out to Kuwaiti Bay, I instantly start feeling better because I love the water. I'm a water baby. I love boats. Worked on boats a large part of my life. Big boats out in the Gulf of Mexico. Well, big to me, anyways. Worked on pipelines out in the Gulf of Mexico. Worked offshore for some time. I got good sea legs. I don't get seasick. One of those guys that can hang. I like that. And Kuwaiti Bay is beautiful. The water is an extraordinary color of teal and blue and green, and I'm sure it's something that's been dumped in it that's going to kill everybody, but it looks pretty. But stinks to high heaven. Woo, stunk. I remember that. Woo. I don't know if it always stunk, but it stunk that day. Woo, stunk to high heaven. The boat is a Dauntless. It's a 34-foot Dauntless Sea Arc patrol boat. And it has one of the craziest drivetrains. I'm not a boat guy, like boat mechanic guy, so I don't know about boat engines and stuff like that. But I'd never been on a boat like this before. And I got to do a shout out to Daniel Larson especially, but all my friends on Facebook that helped me identify the boat. Daniel Larson come in clutch with some good information. When Daniel Larson when he started describing the propulsion system, I was like, that's the very boat. Because they tell us all about all this equipment, and, you hear half of it. You're hot. It's outside. And there's all kind of cool stuff happening around. There's soldiers everywhere. So you're just, distracted and goofing off with your buddies. And they tell us about how all this propulsion works. And it's basically got two 600 horsepower water jet engines that pivot. And when I tell you pivot, I mean like this thing can do a hunt. This thing is wild, man, the way it'll handle. They can make this boat skip across water and do just about everything, you know, and they're telling us about all this. I'm going to paraphrase Daniel Larson here when he said it's basically a 1,200 horsepower jet ski, and that is the best description I can think of for the way this thing handled. They gave us a safety briefing, but me and Chris were too busy laughing in the safety briefing because me and Chris made a bet how quickly Tom was going to tell them that he was Special Forces and in the new Batman movie when he got there. And I guessed within 2 minutes, and Chris had guessed within 4 minutes, and Tom came in clutch at 3 minutes and 37 seconds. Chris had won the first bet of the week. Wouldn't be the last one. They presented us with some flags that they flew in our honor over Kuwait Bay. I still have mine in a really nice little case. I was going to bring it out here and I just forgot. Maybe. No, I'm not going to do a picture of it. That's stupid. You know what a flag looks like. It's a folded up flag and it has a date on it. It says what day they flew it over Kuwait Bay and my name. And it's a really cool honor. Really neat thing. So they present us these flags and then they throw some life jackets on us and here we go, boy. We get on this boat and man, I ain't gonna lie, I get up on the deck of that boat while the Navy guys are driving and they're talking to us on the deck and man, that thing sounds bad to the bone when they get in it, you know. And I ain't never been on a boat that size that moves like that. This thing just goes, baby. And I get that wind in my hair and that salt air, even though it stinks, I start perking up, you know. I'm feeling better than I have in a couple of days of travel. And that thing can pivot on a dime. They're telling us it can handle anything anyone throws at it. And they slow down and they let Tom drive it a while. And me and Chris hang on the front deck. And it's a little bumpy. A little harder to hang on than you think. But, you know, it's doable. They're bouncing around on the front deck, having a good time, cracking jokes, enjoying the bay, some conversation with some soldiers. And then they asked me if I want to drive. I said, oh, yeah, I want to drive this thing. But they were all wanting me to be wild with it. And I'm now, look, man, I learned how to drive a boat from Papa. I got behind the wheel of that boat. I was going bass fishing, son. I was taking big, slow curves across the Kuwait Bay, enjoying the wake and power of that boat. Just concentrate on being smooth. I wanted to impress the Navy guys, make them think I was a boat driving Sun 50, you know, that maybe I might could have been some Navy. You never can tell. And, but I'm just enjoying the power of the boat and enjoyed driving it. And also I know how a boat works and it ain't supposed to turn 180 degrees and stop on a dime. So that's why I don't try to do that. But when Chris takes back over, I head back out to the front deck to take in the sea salt in the air and some more of the spray, you know. The problem is Chris didn't know how a boat was supposed to work. He started cutting that boat like he was trying to round cattle up, like it was a cutting contest. My big ass started flying around that deck, and I could hear him laugh every time. Every time I almost fell down. I fell down once, and I could hear him cawing in there. And my fractured ribs were taking a beating. And I'd holler, and I just, you know what? I ain't going to let them beat me. You ain't going to punk me. And so I would get back up, hold on that rail, and I'd turn around at him and grin. And boy, Chris took that as go harder in the paint. I'm swearing I'm going to kill him in his sleep if I don't end up in the bay. He's beating me to death off that boat. We got off that boat, I could barely walk. I was so pissed. And also, Chris was just so funny about it that I couldn't even stay mad at him, you know. And but I'm just pissed. And also, I'm in awe of this machine because I've never been on no machine like that. That boat is a work. It is something, man. That is a cool machine that moves like nothing I've ever felt. It was incredible. One of my favorite mechanical experiences in my life I've ever got to experience the way that boat moved. That thing gets up and goes, baby. And like I said, it will stop on a dime. It'll spin around. It'll hop over sideways. I don't know how pirates exist in that boat does. Maybe because we don't let them use it. I don't know. The crew of the boat knew I took a beating. And and one of them gave me a challenge coin right there. I never got a challenge coin before. I didn't know what was holding on when the guy walked up with it in his hand and went to shake my hand, and I handed him his coin back and thanked him for letting me look at it. And he's like, "No, it's yours now." And then he sort of, but I still didn't really know what it was. But he was the guy in command. I don't remember his name. But it made me feel so kind of like I'm glad I toughed it out. And they didn't challenge coin nobody else. They just challenged coin me. When we get back to the bunks, Chris explains challenge coin to me, and also why Tom was a little bit miffed, because I think Tom thought he was getting ready to get coin too, and it just didn't happen right there off that first time. Chris also found out that night, we get talking, like that's like the beginning night of our friendship, really. Because I told him I was ready to kill him about that boat ride. He goes, "I don't know, you just kept getting back up," so I just kept doing it. That's the beginning of our friendship, you know, and I find out that we share a lot of the music tastes. We both like a lot of hip-hop, and Chris is also like one of the first black dudes I ever knew that he didn't use the N-word, which was kind of weird to me in my experience at that point. But he would listen to rap songs, but only if they were edited. He didn't like that word, and he didn't like using it, and he didn't like listening to music with it, and he had a stance about it. And so I was just like, well, I'm hanging out with you, bro. It's your perspective. I don't need to listen to that mess either. And it kind of changed the way I felt about it in a really big way. I didn't realize until I got home and started going about more of my daily interactions and the way I felt about things. But he had changed. I grew up with some very racist people. I grew up with a lot of awful things directed at black folks. And I heard that word a lot growing up by all kind of folks. My dad didn't utilize it, but I heard my uncle say it. And, you know, never really heard Papa Longmire. Well, maybe one time, but never heard Papa Clark or Uncle Bobby really use it. That wasn't their thing. They were kind of wild. And I'm sure, I know I had some prejudices of my own, you know, from my own experiences. But that really, I think that was a moment that sort of changed the way I looked at stuff, having that conversation with Chris. I also told him about working with all the Houston rappers because I thought that would impress him, but he was just like, "Man, dog, I hope you get paid for that." And I was like, "No, I'm actually not." And Chris was teaching me about business. He'd been into business for a little while. We did another show on that base at a DFAC for about 30 soldiers that were just trying to eat, and I don't think they knew comedy was going to happen to them while they were trying to eat. And I got in trouble for making a joke about all the rape posters in the bathrooms, but I had never, the military was having a problem with it back then, you know. And every bathroom you went in, there was about 10 posters on the way to the urinal. I'd never been so afraid to take a leak in my life. I didn't know what was about to happen to me in there, you know. Anyways, they didn't like my joke about it and told me to cut that from the set immediately. When you go do military shows and you go entertain the military, they give you a long list of things you cannot say and you cannot talk about it, and it is a lengthy list. And a lot of it's stuff I don't talk about anyways. I don't do a lot of political humor. I don't do stuff like that. But apparently they forgot to add, don't make fun of our rape posters on the list. But that's also a rule if you ever find yourself in that situation. It's so freaking hot. First day there, every time we walk by, they have these big boxes full of these giant water bottles full of water. And every time we walk by one of them, they tell us to grab water. Well, I don't like being told what to do. I'm like, I'll grab water if I want. You don't tell me when I need to drink water. I'm a grown-ass man. Just because you got uniform on, some shit hanging on your chest. Found out why. Second, third day, I woke up in Kuwait on that base, and my piss was orange, and my neck hurt so bad it felt like somebody punched me in the neck the night before, like I'd slept upside down, and I was feeling kind of faint. They made me get some water in me, and I had to dump a bunch of water in me to get back to normal, get the headache go away. But I felt like I was hung over. They're like, yeah, that's how quick it happens here. You're probably lucky it didn't happen to you on the first day. Drink one of these. After that, every time you saw me, I had one of them giant water bottles, just like a big baby, toting that thing around, drinking out. I wouldn't let that happen to me again. To go do the Iraq leg of the show, you can't just go to Iraq at the time. It's an active war zone. You can't just get a visa, get into Baghdad at the moment. So the military's got to sneak us in on one of their flags for their soldiers, and they take us to the airstrip. It's about 8 o'clock in the morning. We're all excited to go to Iraq, go to a new country, and that's when I first learned about hurry up and wait with the military, because we get there and I was like, all right, man, we're gonna be flying out any minute now. They said our plane should be here about 9. I'm excited. Look around, all the soldiers are asleep. None of them are getting in line. None of them care. So what the hell? Well, about 7 o'clock that evening when the plane got in and we got on the plane, I figured it out. This is just the way this thing runs. And I noticed after that, every time you got somewhere where you weren't sure what was about to happen, them soldiers would take a nap. So I started taking naps with them soldiers. And to this day, I still do that with military tours. When I see soldiers take a break, I take a break. Because chances are you don't know when the next one you're going to get. And also, you don't know when anything's going to happen. So don't get in too big a rush unless something's actively happening right now. Your plane may be here at 9 a.m. It may be here at 9 p.m. We don't know. Hurry up and wait. I get my comeuppance. I get my comeuppance on Chris on the flight into Baghdad, because I'm sure I'm going to get the name of this plane wrong, but they put us on this big C-30 transport. I don't think it's a C-130. I don't remember what it is. It's a big old transport plane. It looks like the Hercules kind of. I think it might be a little bigger. They explained to us when they got seats in it, it holds 100 infantry or 100 soldiers. Servicemen, whatever you want to call them. And we get on there and they sit us kind of towards the back, but in the very middle. Me, Chris, and Tom. And Tom is ex-military because he immediately leans his head forward and goes to sleep. And about 2 hours later, the plane takes off after we've sat there in that sweltering plane for hours. Crammed in with 100 other guys, servicemen, in their combat helmets. And they've put combat helmets on us and combat vests on us. Combat vest doesn't fit me very well, so I can't zip it up. I'm just kind of going to have to hold it up and hope they aim at the vest. Chris's dreadlocks won't fit the combat helmet, so the combat helmet's sitting on top of his dreadlocks. It's comical as hell. We get on that C-30 and they start flying us up to Baghdad. And right as we get over Baghdad, they turn the lights out, and all of a sudden the plane drops what felt like 1,000 feet straight down. And then a big sweeping curve. I forgot what is it, a combat maneuver landing? But they do it to keep the plane from getting hit with a RPG or whatever. Dive, woo, big circle, dive, woo. And it's like a steady roller coaster. But the minute we started diving in the dark, Chris started hollering. And Chris ain't religious, but he's Jesus God. Oh God, dang. He's hollering all the way down. He's hollering like Chris Tucker at some point. Like it's getting too much for him. He's hollering. He's letting out some whoops and hollers. And when I get scared, I get quiet. So I'm just terrified and quiet. I don't know what's going on either. Chris is hollering like a banshee right now. Everybody else seems to know what's going on. Tom don't even wake up. And they smack that plane right on the runway and turn them lights on and pull that plane to a stop. And 100 servicemen heads with helmets turned to look at us, see who was screaming. And you bet your ass I ratted him out. I was just sitting there going, Chris realized everybody's looking at him. He goes, F y'all. I didn't know what that was going to be. Iraq's a little different. It's a little more lush. There's more trees and stuff. It's not quite so desolate as Kuwait. Temperatures maybe marginally less. Maybe just because of the trees you feel that way. I don't know. The climate is inherently more serious, though, amongst the soldiers. All the cutting up and laugh, there's a lot less of that when we get off the plane. And they put us in a Ram V truck. And there I am looking like old, is it Donnie? No. Who's a character from the Big Lebowski? Anyway, it's John Goodman. That picture always makes me laugh. But yeah, we go. They put us in this Ram V truck and they take us out to the base. And our MWR lady has met with us. She's a lovely little British lady. She's a hoot. And our other MWR lady, I think her name's Brandy. She's from Alabama. She's cool as hell too. She's Southern. I vibe with her right off the bat. She's good people. And they're more like civilians than military. So, I don't know if they recruit them from outside of the military or what, how any of that works, but that's at least the feeling, is that it's more like hanging out with a civilian than it is with actual military people. But I do remember they took us to Saddam's palace, because that's where we were going to be staying. And we got out of the Ram V truck, and they're ushering us towards the front door of the palace, where the Americans have set up command, and we hear a pop sound. And all of a sudden, everybody starts running towards a porta potty. And they tell us that a serviceman just killed himself in the porta potty. And we're just ushered away and told not to talk about it. But you can see it all over my face in the photos. Like I'm an open book. And it struck me some kind of way. Like I just, what makes a fellow want to do that? What's happening over here? And it's a bad problem in the military. I don't know what the solution is, but it is a problem. We lose a lot of veterans every day. Stuff like that. Little by little, the way I see the world is changing because of this experience. So, seeing it's not a bunch of cheerleading. It's a bunch of people going through real shit. And so far, all the people we've talked to already, half of them are kids, 19, 20 years old, still dealing with all the crap. Me and Chris could barely get a hold of our wives and fiance, respectively. These guys are going through the same crap, but they're gone for months at a time. It's 2008's housing crisis. A bunch of them are getting their houses foreclosed. These terrible things are happening to them, and they're trying to deal with it in another country while also doing this other job that we ask of people. Even though I'm not military and I've never served my country, I take a great deal of pride and care in the way I treat the military shows now. And it's because I do it honestly 100% for the people I get to meet. And I've made a lot of wonderful friends over the years. I made some on this trip. But my view of the world is changing. I'm realizing I've sounded like a fool a lot in my life when I've advocated certain military actions without truly understanding the cost or seeing what it kind of looks like. In fact, they had us take pictures in Saddam's throne that day. I think you can see on my face there, I'm a little perturbed. I'm not right. Same time, we get to use some computers. I get to talk to Rach for a little bit. And Rachel's going through stuff. I kind of told y'all something about this in the Mazda story, but this is where the owner of the laptop starts screwing us around. This is where Jeff McFerrin really starts screwing us, and he's doing a lot of it while I'm out of the country. But that's kind of his MO. He's a bit of a coward. I don't bet he's a complete and utter coward. And I will never think any differently of him after his actions. But Rachel's going through this stuff. I'm trying to help her. 1,000 miles away. Pretty useless. You don't like feeling useless to your lady. That's a shit feeling right there. And I can kind of understand, even though I'm only there for 16 days, I can understand. You know, I hear these guys talking about stuff with their wives and stuff that's going on and trying to take care of problems from over there. And, you know, saying I can understand what that feels like a little bit, because I'm getting just a little taste of it. And Rachel, to her credit, Rachel's doing everything right. Rachel's fighting for the right people. She's standing up for the little guys and the little people at the club that are going to lose their jobs and get screwed over in this process that Jeff has decided to do by selling the club to this other club owner who's just using it to keep people busy while he moves his own club. Never had any plans of keeping it open. But Rachel's doing what's right, so I just got to back her. I got to support her on that. She's letting her people know what's up. She's letting them know these people are going to fire everybody. This is not good for us. Me and Chris kind of bond over that because he's going through stuff. His wife's going through some stuff, money stuff, financial things at the house, and he can't do anything about it from where he's at. And so we bond a little tighter. We try and bond a little bit, you know. Chris's wife is upset about something. I know about as much about that as the shit your buddy's going through with his wife. I look for the high points and congratulate him and console him on the low points I perceive. He does the same. We hug. I know we're going to be friends for life. I don't hug people just because. If you get a JW hug, it's because I felt some move you did. I feel something about you. I'm not a real touchy-feely person. If I hug somebody, it's because I felt something cool about them that made me trust them as a human in this experience we're all having. Well, that was a gunshot. Welcome to the north side. Oh, there's two more. I hope this new mic works. So me and Chris are bonded. You know, we can't tell his wife and Rachel about what happened to us at the what we saw at the porta potty, because they'll be terrified. They'll be so upset. We can't talk about that. You know. So we just got each other to talk to about. Tom's nowhere to be found. He's went off to play with his new iPhone or something. I think he bought a video game console from the PX, and he was screwing with that or something. I don't remember. PX is cool. Everything's cheap as hell in there. It is cool. I get why people dig it. We hang out on Saddam's porch. Some of the soldiers have brought fishing gear and left fishing gear out there for everybody to use. And Saddam had this big lake off his back porch. And supposedly he had man-eating bass or some kind of carp or something in there that he would throw his enemies in, and these fish would eat them. Now, when we invaded in 2004 and they sent tomahawks and bombs in, the sewage line had gotten ruptured, so the lake was very nasty. And like they would tell you, yeah, we can't eat anything out of this, and also we don't know what these fish are. I never caught one, but Chris caught 2 or 3 of them back there fishing off. He outfished me at Saddam's house. Oh, I did catch one. I caught one on like the last day we were there, but it was a little one. But we had a good time hanging out there. I forgot to tell you, we were doing the paper, rock, scissors. Tom makes a big deal about how I'm never going to beat an Asian at paper, rock, scissors. But the thing is, Tom relaxes his hand. Anytime Tom's going to do paper, he relaxes his hand a little bit. He's doing this, but it's like this. Because he's trying to get there quick. And when he does scissors, he makes this face. Like, got you. Right? So I start watching his face and his hand, and I start beating Tom at rock, paper, scissors every time. Chris is making Vine videos about it. It's hilarious. Chris is making Vine videos of a hillbilly beating an Asian at rock, paper, scissors, which I don't know why people thought Asians were super good at rock, paper, scissors. I don't know where that stereotype come from, but they both felt very strongly about it. I'm not going to tell you the whole trip, because some of it's just for me. We did a lot of shows. I could sit here for hours and tell you about stuff we did, but it's not really the point of this thing. We did do some cool stuff, though. We went out one time. They took us out in Iraq to do a show for the Special Forces, a breakfast show for the Special Forces, like 8 in the morning. And they take us to this hunting lodge that Saddam owned. In this hunting lodge, there's a secret wall, and it's got like an eagle interlocked in stone, and the wall just comes apart like that. And Saddam had I guess, read that Hitler was obsessed with eagles, so Saddam got obsessed with eagles, and there's a lot of eagle stuff going on in the country. But this looked like a secret Nazi war room. It was wild, and we went in there and we did a show for the Special Forces, which was fun. Special Forces is kind of wild. Of course, Tom couldn't wait to tell him, who he was. The Special Forces were cool because they took us out to their private little gun range, their little range they had set up. And they let us shoot just about whatever we wanted to shoot, man. I got to shoot sniper rifle. And this one dude had a really cool old 45, like a Springfield Armory, like Vietnam era 45, with a silencer on it. The gun was about 2 foot long. I couldn't wait to shoot that booger because I read a lot of James Lee Burke books, and he was always talking about Detective Dave Robichaux's Springfield Armory in 1911, That was a gun I was hype about. I had a good time shooting that 45. I think there might be a picture of me with it somewhere. I have to look around, but of course they had an AK-47. We shot the AK-47, which I've owned a handful of them over the years, and they're a fine general purpose rifle. Nothing really exciting about them. I like them because you throw them in the bed of the pickup truck, do whatever you want to do. Booger still be ready to go when you're ready. But that's the first time I got to shot an automatic one, which was really cool. But the guns were so hot from being out there. We had to wear these big cotton gloves. So we all got these ridiculous cotton work gloves on while we were shooting these guns. Because, boy, they would cook you. You could fry an egg on these guns. They were so hot being out there in that desert heat. We met Major Walt Abrams. Major Walt Abrams was a helicopter Black Hawk pilot, and the military kind of screwed him, man. And I shouldn't speak. I don't know all the details, but I feel like he got a rough go of it. He got his wings stripped, but he was the best sport about it anybody ever seen. He had devoted his life to the military. He was strong as an ox. Dude I think he was deadlifting like 800 pounds or something. It was insane. He was built like a country horse, man. He's from Georgia. He had his plans. He was going to go back home to Georgia and build him a Harley Davidson and maybe go into law enforcement. He was done with the military. He was just biding his time, but he got to escort us a bunch. He took us out to the motor pool, to the tank pool. We got to ride around in the M1 Abrams, which is really cool. So there's not a lot of room in the Army tank. I barely fit down in that hole, son. And then I got down in that hole, realized I wasn't sure if I could get out. And Walt goes, I'll never forget, Walt goes, man, I got you, bro. and he reached down and grabbed me up under my shoulders and lifted me out of that tank like I was a ballerina. I never felt so delicate and dainty in my life as when Major Watt whipped me up out of that tank and set me on top of that tank like I was a little kid. Man, it was wildly strong. It was hilarious, man. And he run around with us for a while while we're going to shows, took us around to meet different people, do meet and greets and stuff. He was a lot of fun. He was in the MWR, and he was on his way out, so he didn't mind bending the rules a little bit. And they come up to us a little late in the trip, and they said, "Hey guys, we just had Puddle of Mud and Carlos Mencia come through, but their contracts don't allow them to go to any forward outpost bases, FOBs." And it didn't dawn on me to question what for, but it was a safety issue. Well, we were nobodies. Nobody cared about us. So we were like, hell yeah, we'll go. So they got all excited. They said, well, we're going to send you to do some of these extra shows then, some of these FOBs that don't get entertainment very often. But they kind of buried the lead there, because what I tell you who was touring those FOBs and those bases was the Seattle Supersonic Cheerleaders. And guess how many dudes want to watch comedy from three jackasses after the Seattle Supersonic Cheerleaders been bouncing around showing their ass? Not many. You never see somebody so disappointed show up to a show like, boy, you should have been here last night. Yeah, Supersonic Cheerleaders here. The guys still walking around harder than a rock, you know? Let me tell you about my uncle that drinks too much. Give it. Want to laugh? We're good sports. We get it. We'd rather watch the cheerleaders too. Those bases were kind of cool because they flew us out to those shows in a Black Hawk helicopter. And I've never really cared for flying, but I will tell you that in a Black Hawk helicopter with an Army pilot piloting is the only time in my life I felt like I was supposed to be in the air. The way those dudes move those choppers is something like you ain't never experienced. It's amazing. They'll walk that bird, make that bird do whatever they want it to do. And those guys are good, man. And you feel, you got an open door, you can see thousands of feet down. You don't care, you feel safe. We met General Petraeus, David Petraeus. He was commanding general of the U.S. Iraq Multinational Force. We went out and met the U.S., basically what was left of the Iraqi Republican Guard. And they were being trained by U.S. soldiers to deal with IEDs and bombs and that kind of stuff. We met the bomb crew and the bomb dogs. And General Patriot didn't coin us, but he had an NCO that was with him, that was in the room during that meeting. And the NCO came up and coined us afterwards. But the NCO also gave us his business card. And he said, I heard you never been in the military. I know your friend has. Because, of course, Tom had told him. I'd won the bet that time. And he said, basically, I'm an NCO, and the NCO takes care of his people. If you have any problems on this trip, you call this number, and I will get you help, and I will get you taken care of while you're in country. And I stuck that business card in my little shirt pocket and thought, well, I won't need that. I can't imagine I'll ever need to call an NCO for anything. And the next night we went and did a show in Tamaya. Tamaya was kind of crazy. I think Tamaya's in the Sunni Triangle, or maybe that was the Apache base. We did one show at one of them where we heard some mortar rounds while we were on stage, and that was terrifying. But Tamaya was my show to shine. I won rock, paper, scissors. I was headlining that show, closing that show. And Tamaya was it was an old youth soccer center. And where they let us do the show at, it was like there was these seats up here around, and there's this plywood down. And when you get them guys going really good, they start stomping that plywood. It was like Mad Max Beyond Thunderdome. And they had these drinks over there, and I know the military still has this stuff, okay, because I just had one when I was in Africa, but whatever it is now is not what it was in Iraq. But when we got in Iraq, they started giving us these energy drinks called Rip It. And buddy, when I tell you, you drink a Rip It, you're going to be up for 3 days, them kind. Woo! We were running on Rip Its at that point. And in fact, I was on stage that night headlining that show in Tamaya, and I accidentally got a little carried away, and I spilt my Rip It on the ground, and I dove down on the ground and snorted it up off the plywood, and the soldiers went nuts. I mean, leveled the place. It was a hell of a good way to end out that little part of the tour. They cooked us hamburgers and shit. We had a cookout with them. They gave me a shirt. Is it the Dark Horse Battalion? Man, if I remember it, I'll tell you guys in the chat. I think it's the Dark Horse Battalion. But I have to go look at that shirt, see what that shirt says on it. I have a hard time keeping up in the military and all their acronyms and all their everybody's got a nickname, and it's a lot. And when you're seeing all of it, you're trying to absorb it all. And every one of these vehicles got an acronym. Everything got an acronym. Every base got an acronym. Every job's got an acronym. It's just it's a lot of acronyms. We're coming back at night from Tamaya. We fly back into Baghdad. We come over the Tigris-Euphrates River in the middle of the night. And I'm listening to that song by Bruce Springsteen. It's called My Hometown. Talking about folks fighting. Mm-hmm. And, you're flying over the Tigris-Euphrates River. This is where Earth began. This is where this cradle of civilization. This is where everything started. If you're religious, and I certainly grew up in church and with the Bible, this means something to you. And I'm having, big emotions about where I'm at. And if I'm doing everything I need to be doing. And, it's all still kind of scary. I'm in a helicopter, a blacked out helicopter. In the middle of the night, there's flares going off. There's a guy with a 50 cal gun beside me. Just looking for something to aim at. We get back. They had us do another show over at Sather Air Force Base. And that was Tom's moment to shine. I felt bad. Let Tom win rock, paper, scissors that night. Tom wanted to headline. Oh, he wanted to headline that Air Force show. I didn't know why. When we got over there and saw all the girls, we realized why. Tom brought out his guitar for this show. Tom was a freaking rock star. He blew the place away. Girls were in love with him. He was signing autographs. Also, I had taken a bunch of CDs. I had taken a bunch of my new CD with me, Bad Decisions. And I was just giving my CD away to the soldiers until I ran out. And then I started a mailing list. And when I got back to the United States, we got a whole bunch more CDs from BCD. And we wrote everybody little letters. And I mailed all these soldiers. There's probably soldiers out there still that have a copy of my first album that I mailed them. We got one back from a soldier's mom, a soldier that was deceased, and oof, it was pretty sad. Oh boy, didn't even make it long enough to get his free out. But I just wanted to give him something, I didn't like the idea of selling them stuff. Enough people over there trying to get their money. Talked to Rachel that night. Shit's really going down at the club now. They basically completely screwed her and asked her to turn in her keys. They're mad that she told all the staff what was happening and feeling completely betrayed. Everything's going downhill with that situation. I can't get to her. I can't get her. I can't help her. I can't do anything for her. But I am headed home to my own battle. You know what I mean? I'm going to go home and do battle with this girl because I believe in her. Also found out that night that David had sold the transmission shop. So I was also going home. I didn't have a job when I got home. Not that I was any good at it, you know. He certainly had every right to sell his business, make some money on it. But I was going home to no job. Things, the tide was turning. We got done in Iraq. They got ready to send us back to Kuwait to go home. And they were flying us on Black Hawk back into Kuwait for whatever reason. And something happened. Some call came in. Some sort of excitement that was more exciting than taking some stand-up comics back to Kuwait. And so the pilot dropped us, I think the town was called Basra. And it was another airstrip. But I didn't even know it was in Iraq. I didn't know where we were. And, first off, they dropped us off at this airport in Basra. And we go in there and talk to it. Now, the man working behind the desk, I don't know who he is. I don't know if he's military. I don't know what country he's from. But he's a very effeminate man. And he's very sassy. And he's rude right off the bat. Like, he's just really rude. And there's soldiers walking around. I don't know for what country, because I don't know where I'm at. I now know I think it was in Iraq. But the problem is we're now in Iraq, but we don't have no visas or anything. And this guy's telling us we got to get on a bus, and it's going to take us to another town, and they're going to decide whatever. All I'm hearing is you're about, no, hell no, no, that ain't the plan. We're supposed to be going back to Kuwait. I ain't getting on no bus. I'll be damned, right? I start losing my mind and getting a little loud, you know, with this effeminate guy's being rude to me. And I'm like, I'll be damned. You ain't going to make me get on no damn bus. I ain't going no damn where until I hear from the people I'm dealing with. I'm supposed to be picked up by the U.S. military. You ain't going to treat me like this. And I'm getting louder and louder. And all of a sudden, all them soldiers come in behind that guy, that effeminate dude, and pull their weapons up at arms. And I got quieter. I ain't trying to be no accident. I told y'all that before. I got quiet as hell then. Well, went back to my bags, and Chris is like, bro, you got to stop hanging out with them rappers. What kind of gangster shit was that? You gonna get us all killed in a foreign country. And that's when I remembered the NCO, what the NCO does. The NCO takes care of his people. And I got the NCO's card. And I go to that payphone. I don't have to use cardboard coins, luckily. Got a little calling card. And I call. I wish I could remember his name. I know I still got his card. But I call this NCO. It's like 2 o'clock in the morning. He wakes up and he's like, what the hell's going on? I said, sir, my name's Jerry Wayne Longmire. I'm a stand-up comic. I met you a few days ago with General David Patriot. He goes, yeah, I remember who you are, son. What's the problem? Get to the point. What's going on? I said, well, they're bringing us back to Kuwait. They dropped us off at this town called Basra at this little airport. And this guy's telling me I got to get on a bus. And then they all drew guns and they're mad. And I ain't getting on no bus, sir, because I don't know where that bus is going. And I'm freaking out here a little bit. And sure, he goes, I got this. Don't worry about a thing. Your ride will be there soon. Hangs up on me. Dude, I'm walking back to tell Chris and Tom what's happened. And the phone rings behind the counter. I'm talking minutes. And Mr. Sassy, effeminate jackass, picks up the phone and answers it with his little rude voice. And immediately his tone changes. Because all of a sudden it's a lot of yes, sir, and no, sir, and all that sassy attitude is gone. Yes, sir, no, sir, sorry, sir, sorry, sir, sorry, sir, sorry, sir, yes, sir. And he hangs up the phone, he glares at me, and he turns around and says something to one of the soldiers. They all put the guns at ease and go back doing their own thing. He says, your ride's on the way. You can wait here in the lounge. If you guys want anything to draw, all of a sudden he's nice as hell. Chris like, that was some gangster shit. You know, tattled on him. I said, that's what you do in the military. You tattle on each other. Sure enough, boy, about 2.5 hours later, here come old Mike, our MWR guy, in a bulletproof Suburban. And he drove us through a checkpoint and drives us back into Kuwait. Back to the main base. I think we did one more show there in a chapel or something. We did an interview with the Army Times. By then, me and Chris are getting along famously. We've made plans to hook up once we get back in the States, work together. We've picked on Tom the entire time. Ain't proud of it. That's what we've done, but it was fun. Tom's flying to New York. Chris is flying to Detroit, and I'm flying back to Houston. Me and Chris, we got similar flight times. Tom's flight's leaving early, so he gets on the flight. We see him off. He goes back to New York. We all agree to exchange pictures, all that good stuff. And me and Chris go screw around the Amsterdam airport for 4 or 5 hours, have us a good old time. There may have been some drinks. I can't even tell you what all happened. I know I took a picture of this dumb statue. But we had a good ass time, man. The time I got a flight on to Houston, me and Chris was tight. You know, Rachel picks me up at the airport. We go home, we bone like wildcats. And then I pick up my arms to do battle with my own club. Of course, they canceled my gig. They canceled my headlining gig. Snatch it right out from under me when I got a contract and everything. I get mad at Outlaw because he's still going to do sponsorship business with them, and basically quit the Outlaw Dave show in a phone call in a very immature way, but I was frustrated, ready to do battle. I don't care. You know, I'm young enough for a fresh battle. My ribs are healed. I'm getting married to the finest thing I ever seen or met, and I survived the deck of that dauntless patrol boat. You ain't going to hold me down. We're going to win this battle. And we kind of do. Because I'm still going, and everything about that place is gone. And everything about those people that are screwing us over was gone. And they have no influence on my world anymore. But it took a long time to win. Pick your battles wisely. And Chris is one of my absolute closest friends to this day. He's family at our house. He's spent multiple holidays and times with us. Him and I have performed at casinos and clubs all over the place together. I mean, we've gone everywhere together. We've had 1,000 more adventures, and I'm pretty sure we're not even done. Excited about how that's coming out. Cool, finish the head on it. Chris is one of those people. Chris is one of the people who never really let me quit comedy. He just refused. Every time I started getting too distant, he'd call me up and drag me to some casino to open for him, some gig to open for him. He refused to let me walk away. We both still got our paper nickels, because we're paper nickels for life. I went home, tore my motorcycle all to pieces, did this crazy paint job on it, was going to restore it. Of course, I never finished. And I think I sold that motorcycle to David at some point. I know I sold that motorcycle to David. He sold it to a friend of his that's really into them old Japanese bikes. Of course, now they're getting kind of high dollar. At the time, you could pick them up for $200 or $300 on Craigslist, so I wasn't that concerned about it. And I think I told y'all I decided I wasn't going to ride motorbikes while my kids were small. I did sell that 60. I went home and sold that 68 Ford Bronco. Bought me a little Honda Accord from David for a couple $100. And yeah, I go home and we have to do battle. And it's ugly and it's bad. And then we get married a month later, so it doesn't matter. Because now it's just me and her, against the world. And I've done several military shows since then, but your first one is your first one. I learned a lot on that trip. Changed the way I viewed the world, changed the way I view warfare, and I view the way people serve. Changed the way I felt about some of the stuff I grew up around. Stuff I didn't really have a place for in my life anymore because I was changed. And I made one of the best friends a fool could ever make, As always, I of course appreciate you guys sharing your Sunday with me. I so appreciate any of you that came out to the show in Seguin last week. That was just a hoot and a half. And see, I'm wearing my Brisket Cartel shirt because I did go to the Burnt Bean and meet the owner of the Burnt Bean and eat some free food, which was fantastic. It was amazing food. I had a great time at their restaurant, so if you get a chance, watch that video. They treated me great. We had such a good time together. And I'll definitely be back to the Burnt Bean. I guarantee you that. I gotta. I'm still thinking about that bacon, son. Might have to give me some more of that. Of course, you guys, appreciate y'all sharing, telling your friends about the show. Appreciate you listeners out there all over the world. Enjoying the show. Continue to download it, listen. I hope the audio's a little better this week. I hope the new mic works better. It's a little better being able to film it here in the evening. Thanks to my sponsors and my new air conditioner. Of course, one more time, Everyone Racers Podcast. Go check it out. It might be right up your alley. Take a listen. The guys they're pretty funny, and they really seem to know what they're talking about. And they're out there living the life doing it. So it's always more fun to hear from that perspective. So definitely go check out the Everyone Racers Podcast. Tell them JW sent you. And next week, I don't know where we're going to go yet. I haven't made up my mind. I'll let you guys know sometime this week. But I haven't made a decision. I'm kind of hemming and hawing, going back and forth. I think it'd be the 10th episode. I kind of want it to be special. So we may travel back in time to 16, 17-year-old Jerry Wayne and 1972 Ford F-100 pickup. I might have some more news for you on the Super Beetle front. I do think we're going to probably do it in September, at least when it gets a little cooler. It'll be easier to get out there and work on it. It ain't like it's going nowhere. And you guys, I hope whatever's going on in your life right now is good. I hope you're playing the secret chord that pleases the Lord. Things are syncing up for you. And if you're not, I hope you can get some of the things out of the way so you can. As always, I love you. I'm JW.